Okay, so today I'm going to share with you some information about how to reduce the throw of the throttle on your Versys-X 300. This is a trick that we use on the racetrack on Ninja 250s, Ninja 300s, Ninja 400s, my own VTR 250 track bike, a bunch of others. So what we get, well, let me show you first the problem. Well, the problem that we're trying to solve. Here I've put a push pin in at 12 o'clock, and we'll see that we're coming right down. It's a full quarter of a turn. This is pretty standard for most throttles on motorcycles. People say, oh, I put a quarter turn throttle on my bike. It's just a turn of phrase. Quarter of turn actually is really long. If you look at my hand, it's gonna take me to go way down in an extreme wrist position like this to go to full throttle. So what we're gonna do is change the throttle tube. What you get for about $55 Canadian from your Yamaha dealer. There's no aftermarket solution for this one. It's a 2008 Yamaha R6 Throttle tube and grip assembly. I've already started to take the grip off. We obviously don't need this grip because we're using heated grips from Oxford. But what you get on this throttle tube is a much bigger. Okay, now I've got the throttle housing opened up, removed from the handlebar, removed from the bike. It's pretty simple and straightforward. It's just two screws on the back, JIS number 2 screwdrivers, all you need for that. A lot of people will use a Phillips, not perfect, but it works. And buggered up the Kawasaki throttle tube a little bit because it was glued into the Oxford heated grip, of course. And now let's grab the R6. And let's get the shadow. Here you can see the R6 cam profile is much larger, and that's what pulls more cable and gives you a quicker turn with easier ability to achieve a full throttle. So that one's done. It's really tight, it just fits in. So I'm going to show you with one hand. That's how it sits in the throttle housing. The stock one doesn't need to snap in, it just falls in. Then it's just reverse of disassembly. Put the throttle cables back in. Okay, on installing the throttle tube, the Yamaha throttle tube, I'm finding that little bit of snap pressure that it takes to go in is a bit too much. So there's some drag. I'm just going to take a file and file this little tip off right here and maybe a tiny bit of that radius, just to make sure there's no drag at all. And now I'm going to have to file just a little tiny bit off of the corner of this. I'm going to make it like a little bit of an angle instead of a square end. That's the throttle cable, pull cable with a macaroni elbow on it. Alright, so now we've got the throttle tube in the throttle housing, and you can just see the clearance here. That's where I filed away a little bit of extra. Yeah, I'm shooting this on my phone, and the editing is going to be crap. This is more about information being passed on to fellow riders than making a stellar TV production. So this throttle cable holder and guide comes off with one screw, that hole right there. I had to take a little bit more off. I was getting some drag once I tightened the screws down in the housing. I just used a flat disc on the Dremel and took a little bit more off that radius, a little bit on the width, and then I took that slot at the end all the way down through. Nothing that would affect your ability to go back to stock. It's just a little bit in the way for the bigger cam. Okay, so one thing that I didn't mention is you're going to need to have quite a bit more cable slack to get the cables around the bigger cam and put the cover on. So both cables have an adjuster. One's right on the housing, right here. And the other one is right on the other cable, right there. So I loosened them all the way to start. Now that I've finished filing and shaping that little ramp area, we've got smooth action and unimpeded release. You don't want any drag when you're like over throttle, obviously. Okay, so this is all buttoned up. A nice snappy return. Could probably dial in a little bit more cable slack. I'm gonna have to do that at the throttle body because it's bottomed out up here. And now for the comparison. It's not a great deal more. It's probably like a fifth instead of a sixth. If you look at the wrist, I can still cock my wrist down, but I don't have to be like before it was down here. So it's about there. Still pretty extreme. Still kind of gotta reset your hand to get a good wrist position. Is it worth it? I think so for me. I like tinkering. It was not expensive. A nice result. If you never use full throttle, if you don't really care, or if you don't feel like paying somebody to do it, maybe it's not worth it for you. Thanks for watching. Until next time.